We're live.
We are live. All right. Hey, this is Curt,
And Brad Pinsky.
and we're here for another edition of Fire Law Roundup for January 13th of 2025. Brad,
Yeah,
go ahead. Take
new
us
year.
away.
So Kurt, I'm going to need your help on this. I know this is where we're going to start. We're going to start in Alabama. I can give the basics, but I think you have way more of the information background on this. We
Yeah.
have an Alabama jury, right? So this is a jury who's found this, has found that the city of Mobile, Alabama, did not
Mobile.
Mobile, yeah, did not wrongfully terminate or retaliate
Hmm.
against a fire captain who was
Hmm.
then dismissed in 12. Now, the
Hmm.
captain was one of three people terminated or disciplined. He
Discipline.
was terminated. Another captain was disciplined, and a probationary firefighter was terminated.
Terminating. Yeah.
And they alleged all three of them alleged race discrimination.
Yeah, well, let me go back. Let me go back to the
Yeah,
beginning, and it starts with the female. She was a lesbian, female, African American probationary firefighter, who apparently made it through the first part of their training, and I think one of the captains, or maybe both of the captains, were her training officers as well at the academy. But at any rate, she was then assigned to work with one of the captains. And she apparently was, doing what she needed to do. She decided to get a tattoo, which the department had a no
oh,
visible
I
tattoo
do remember
policy.
this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the question became whether or not the department was picking on her because she was African American, because she was a female, because she was a lesbian, um,
Was
or
this the one who
whether or
said
not
she's Muslim and she didn't
well,
know
that
anything
came
about it?
later. No, that came later. Okay, that came after she got the tattoo and so on. She wanted to wear a hijab, and she said that she was Muslim.
But couldn't
And
identify the Quran
right,
as.
well, then during the depositions, she had never been to a mosque,
Yep.
and she couldn't identify what the Quran was, or she couldn't identify the main textbook of the Muslim religion. So it made it look like it was a sham. Anyway, her case ended up getting dismissed. Okay, but in the meantime, two captains went to bat for her. One of whom was the captain we're talking about, Captain Schutz, who subsequently got he's a fire chief right now in what was it?
Pritchard.
Pritchard, yeah,
Pritchard.
Pritchard, Alabama. So, obviously he's got something on the ball, and but at any rate, they both of the captains, African Americans, I believe they may have had some involvement in a fraternal association of African American firefighters, if my recollection is correct too. But bottom line is they went to bat for her, and they subsequently got disciplined for some of the things that happened as well. So they all sued. She lost her case. Captain Craig, the other captain, he ended up his case got dismissed, and now Captain Schutz's case went to a jury, apparently, at least according to the news media, and the jury rejected his claims that he was wrongfully terminated and retaliated against for coming to bat for the female firefighter. So I've got links to all three of the prior articles that we posted on it. But it looks like, I mean, barring an appeal, it looks like this is going to put an end to that mess down there in Mobile.
Yeah. And it's, like I always tell people with jury verdicts, they mean nothing except they're the end of the case. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it, unless there's been a screw up. But, you can't fault the jury or the lawyers. Who knows what happens with a jury trial? Certain evidence
Right.
is excluded, not allowed in. The judge lambastes the attorney the entire trial, which has happened to me, and it paints a bad picture, right? The judge influences the jury
Yeah.
with comments. I mean, you don't know whether it was a good case, bad case. I always tell people, you tried to impress six people and you didn't do it, or you
Yeah.
did, if you won.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean much. It doesn't have any precedential value at all.
No, all it is the jury found this way. We don't know why the jury found this way, but the bottom line is the jury found against the firefighter and in favor of the city. And, again, barring some sort of an appeal by the Captain Schutz or the female probationary firefighter as well, may be appealing hers. But again, barring some sort of a reversal, hopefully chapter in Mobile's history now is behind him.
Okay, let's go to Tennessee, not so far away from Alabama anyway. So we have a firefighter. God, there's got to be several of these all the time. Charged with impersonating law enforcement. You know, he gets into an altercation, kind of a road rage incident with somebody, and he pulls out a badge, and he makes it. People think, oh, I'm just showing you I'm a firefighter, but that's really not what's going on. It looks like you're impersonating law enforcement. We've had cases, right, where, and here I think he uses emergency warning lights as well. Look, we've all been tempted to do it. Let's be fair. Driving our chief's car, somebody pisses you off for some reason, you know, and if it's an undercover, right, type thing, like I had lights and sirens, my personal vehicle, I would have loved to turn them on and pull people over. I used to joke all the time with my wife, right? I want to pull that guy, but you don't do it. No, you don't do it. Yeah. So anyway,
there's constitutional issues as well. You know, the person that he pulled over has been seized. You know, so now you have someone, potentially violating the Fourth Amendment.
Hard case to win, right? Because the municipality is going to say he didn't do that, and he's part of two agencies. I think both municipalities, both entities say, "Hey, that wasn't part of his job responsibilities." Taking the government out,
but he was acting at least in, not so much. If I'm going after him, I may go after him under a 1983 action, a civil rights action that you were acting under color of law. Who authorized you to have the lights? I'm not going after the city. The city may have a defense, but this particular person, you're using the color of law. You're using your position and your authorization to have those lights to violate the civil rights of my client.
And here's the funny part. So this is where we're going. So the government says, hey, he wasn't acting part of us. He's saying, he wants to say, well, I don't want to lose the lawsuit on the Fourth Amendment or 1983 or all that. So no, I wasn't acting under color of law, which is an admission that he had no right to use his light. So which one do you want to lose, the criminal or the civil?
He's screwed.
Right.
You're going to lose either way.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Advice from Curt. Don't do stupid shit. Anyway, okay. Now let's go way up the coast to New Jersey. And we've got the appellate division, second highest level court, who overturned the denial. And this is very complicated. I will do my best, but this is extremely complicated. They overturned the denial of an accidental disability pension to a firefighter. So the firefighter, let me kind of sum it this way. If he was acting as a paid employee at the time he was permanently disabled, would have received these long-term permanent retirement disability benefits. If he was acting as a volunteer, he would not. Now, New Jersey does have volunteer benefits, but apparently there must not be as good as this that he would get if he was paid. Right. So he was employed as an he works as both before we say employed or volunteer, as both an EMT and a firefighter. He was paid as an EMT, but volunteered as a firefighter. So in order to win, he needs to establish, presumably, that he was injured in his capacity as a paid EMT. Now, against him is the fact that he was carrying a ladder while he became disabled. If I was his ladder instructor, I might have yelled at him. I don't know what he did wrong, but I don't see how you get permanently disabled from carrying a ladder or throwing a ladder. But nonetheless, he did. And I'm not picking on him. I'm just being, firefighter me. So, but nonetheless, but he responded to the scene reportedly as the EMT for EMS. So the question is, what is he? He's clearly acting in dual roles. He's throwing a ladder. And so the court initially says, you're a volunteer, you're out. And the New Jersey court threw that out, saying there's more questions of fact that we need answers. So there's no answer here, but you could see this coming up a lot of different ways for a lot of different agencies.
Absolutely. And I think to understand what the court said is, we're not saying he's entitled to a disability pension. And for those of you who aren't familiar with pensions, there's really, in general, there's really three types of pensions. There's a disability pension, which gives you the most protection. If you're a firefighter and you're injured, disability pension. I know in Providence we got 2/3 of your original salary, your last year, last 3 years, however it's configured, plus healthcare benefits and yada yada yada. There's ordinary disability, which is based, there's a couple of different ways that those are based, but it's basically that you're disabled, but it's not job related. And it's going to be a function of how many years you have on, plus how much you put in it. It's not going to be as lucrative, I guess.
Right.
I hate to even use that term because it's not lucrative, but it's a little bit better than nothing, but it's not as good as a disability pension. And then the third one is just your service pension, which is based on years of service, how much you put in and all that. So he wanted the disability pension, and the pension board awarded the ordinary disability pension. He probably didn't qualify for the service pension. And so basically the court didn't say that he's entitled to the disability, the line of duty disability pension or accidental disability pension.
Better benefits.
You have to go back and reanalyze your decision to award him the lesser thing. So see, now in my mind now, Brad, I immediately went to the FLSA. And I don't know if his attorney argued this, but I would have been arguing that you can call him a volunteer firefighter.
But his job duties included.
But under the FLSA, you cannot, work for a fire department as an EMT and occasionally do firefighting activities while you're an EMT and volunteer. So in addition to, the concern here about whether, what capacity was, there's a question that he may very well have been employed, not by a voluntary act of the township, but by the FLSA, that he was a firefighter.
Right.
And that they now owe him at least 3 years worth of back wages for all of his volunteer time. Right. So and I didn't see them make that argument, but that's where my mind immediately went when I read it.
Yeah, because you probably have a lawyer focusing on different things, right? And I agree. Look, and the factual determinations here is going to be a burden, which is heavier, right? And there's going to be so many factors that weigh against it or for and against, that I could see both sides here. But the sine qua non, as we say in the stat in Latin, right? That without, there could not be.
That without which.
Yeah. That without which, right? Which means the final word, basically, to me. The final word here is going to be, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just saying it. Who instructed him to perform fire ground activities outside of his role as an EMT? Is that person in his paid service? Right? So if to me, your boss, if I arrive as a volunteer to a scene where my boss is present, right, in my paid job, and my boss of my paid job orders me to start working in a paid capacity, then maybe. But the problem here is he's a volunteer firefighter, so he's being ordered to volunteer. Is what it seems to be, is if he responded as a paid EMT. And I got to know how he's dispatched. What did he arrive on? I presume he arrived on a fire truck.
I'm assuming also, but let me kind of run you through the FLSA analysis. The FLSA and the Department of Labor regulations say that you go to a place called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. If you do a Google search, it'll take you right there. This place called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. And virtually every single occupation in the world is in that. And what the regulations say that the first 3 digits establish a category. So for firefighters, we all start with 373. So if let's say you're a fire lieutenant, and you want to know if you can you're a paid fire lieutenant, you want to know if you can volunteer as a fire inspector. You look, and there it is. Fire inspector starts with 373. It's a different subsequent number, but it starts with 373. Therefore, you cannot volunteer. You're in the same category. Same thing. And often it comes up, you have a career firefighter who wants to volunteer as the fire chief or as maybe some other position. If it's 373, you can't. Okay. If it's 079, which is EMS, you can. Okay. But it's possible for a given position to be both 373 and 079. And that, to me, that's the factual question. When he was hired to be an EMT as a 079, did his duties include the duties of a firefighter, 373? In other words, we look at, did he routinely respond to fires? Was he dispatched to fires? What did he do when he got there? Did he stretch hose lines?
Would he have to stop being a firefighter if his more important role as a paid EMT came into question? Like he's throwing ladders and all of somebody says, hey, that person's hurt, go help. So what's your primary duty?
Bingo. So the question to me is going to be, is he a combination 373079? Is he both? Okay. Or is he clearly employed only as a 079? And some places, some places have their medics. The medics do not have turnout gear. They're not to go into buildings. They set up an EMS staging area, a rehab area, and that's it. They don't do anything, and they're not supposed to do anything. If you're that kind of a 079, you're all set. But if you are in fact a 373/079, you do both. Right. They've got an FLSA problem, and I think they've got an issue here on prevailing on this case because he was hired. He's basically paid to do both. So a lot of details that I think are going to have to come out here about what did he do when he was working full time? Did he ever stretch hose lines? Did he ever carry a ladder?
Which is not uncommon, right? Your EMS people at the early part of our scene are sitting there. They set up the stretchers, set up, in a staged area. And then here are my questions. Were there sufficient people back at a staged area? Was he dispatched to set up staging? Was he dispatched in any way for EMS? And again, what truck did he arrive on? What did he do when he was there? It's not uncommon for a chief to say, we're shorthanded. I need you. Come over here. There's no one hurt yet. But if someone gets hurt, right? Hopefully it's not you. We'll send you back to EMS. I mean, that's not uncommon.
I had a guy,
a big city, but
I had a guy contact me. He was a fire marshal. Okay. But he's also a volunteer for the same department. And they told him you can't volunteer anymore. And he was irate. They can't do this. I'm being wrongfully terminated as a volunteer, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I went through the 373 with them, and they was mad with me. I said, don't get mad with me. Go talk to the Department of Labor. But your fire department is right that you can't be the paid fire marshal and volunteer. They've got to pay you. Now, maybe you qualify for an exemption. Maybe you're an exempt employee as a high-ranking fire marshal, and he had no discretion. He was more of an inspector than anything. But bottom line is, the Department of Labor regulations specify this, and I just see an interconnection here with this case and the FLSA.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I agree with you. Okay. So, but people got to start paying attention to this. FLSA suits are popping up. I'm handling them even on the plaintiff side, as some people know, and we'll talk about shortly. I have an answer due in one where I sued, and today's their last day to answer. It's going to be interesting. But people violate the FLSA all the time, and they don't think anything of it. Well, I said, of course,
we've always done. We actually, in my class, we talk about all the excuses. We've always done it this way. This is how my predecessor does it.
Nobody cares.
HR told us to do it this way. Finance told us to do it this way. All the excuses. They don't.
No one's gonna ever sue. Don't worry. Yeah.
I read the FLSA, and this was my opinion about what it said. No, don't try that one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's head out to San Francisco, and of course, if anybody in California is watching, because you're not, but Curt and I, obviously, our hearts go out to you like every firefighter, and hope the firefighters are safe. I mean, I have said, having done both, I've done wildland firefighting, not ridiculous like we would do in a rural area, but not like this. And if anyone's watching who does structural, let me tell you, structural is a walk in the cake. It's generally predictive. We know how a building's going to react. We're not usually, unless you're in high rise, worried about wind shifting conditions, right? I mean, this is a totally tougher, harder world, and cutting lines sucks.
If this was out in Montana and there was maybe one or two houses threatened, it'd be one thing. Right. But to have it in an urban area, it's just it's really mind blowing. Right.
It is. But I've been reading, and we could even cover it here, but I've been reading about, the accusations towards the mayor and whether the mayor actually cut the budget, whether she actually increased the budget. And that's a lot of it. You see Fox News coming out really against the mayor of California, mayor of the cities, and because, they're always at odds to each other with them and Fox, but they apparently, it looks like they did give significant budget increase or salary increases to the firefighters, but it's in a separate line. So it looks like the department budget goes down, whatever it is. But I got to tell you, so I'm in Florida right now, and I've been watching Florida news, and here's where the lawsuit's going to come, right? And it's going to be not so dissimilar than we saw in Hawaii. Florida actively cuts their brush, actively prevents it. If I'm a homeowner, I'm suing. If I'm an insurance company, I'm suing the city, the state, whoever, for not actively managing the brush, the underbrush, the undergrowth, everything that's sitting there. If you drive down the streets in Florida constantly, there's brush always on the side of the road. They're cutting, pulling out. They are not letting this happen.
And burning. I know I've been through Florida myself, and they do prescribe burns.
A lot of back burning and everything.
See, one of the challenges in California is that you have environmental groups that have successfully sued to stop those types of things.
Congratulations. How'd it work for you?
Yeah, really, really. Well, they're probably happy. They're probably in some sort of an environment where they're not suffering from the results of this.
No, because now they're going to go claim about global warming from release of carbon emissions from the burning of the trees, which is true, by the way. It's not global warming. The carbon falls on the ice. This is true, and melts the ice because carbon is heat. But that you can't have it both ways.
You can't. You can't. And I think people come first, and I guess you look at short-term versus long-term, with long-term looking at the environmental impact, but the short-term is we can't have people burned out of their homes. Right. And if you want to have one rule for national parks and state parks and where structures primarily are not threatened, that's fine. But you start talking about urban areas, and there has to be laws to protect even homeowners. Like if I have a home next to somebody who wants to go au natural and has all this brush, a fire in their house can extend to my house, and there needs to be some regulation about the safety hazard that other people or neighbors are having on their property. And that's different than if you're living in Montana or Wyoming or Idaho.
And if I'm a California resident and I have family in California, but I would be foiling or asking for public record release of every memo warning about this, or I would just sue and get it under subpoena. But I guarantee they have people in conservation jobs, right? The people who are trained to do all these burns who have been dying to do it. And they're probably have memos saying, I'm telling you, if you don't, something bad's going to happen. You find those memos and goes down the ship. Right. Yeah. So anyway, okay, we're off topic, but we're going to be covering those stories just like we did in Hawaii.
There'll be suits. In fact, I think I saw something that there's already some suits filed. I don't know against whom, because I'm not sure that we know the cause yet. Right. But
we know one is arson, presumably. So, okay. So anyway, so back to San Francisco, without further delay. San Francisco firefighters, it's just a lawsuit. And I stopped reading. When I first got this, I'm like, Curt, did you mistype this?
No, I didn't.
So he's suing over injuries from 2009. Yeah. And so then I was saying, well, maybe he was in a coma for, 15 years. In any event, he's claiming that the city's racist practices and negligence led to his catastrophic injuries. Now, I'm not minimizing what he's saying, but my bet is this is getting dismissed pretty quickly. But nonetheless, but what he said is it's a policy issue, basically, that he says basically because I'm of a certain race, I'm being treated differently, as are all of the people of my race, and I'm not getting good communications. I'm being excluded from things. I get worse gear. But here's the thing. Ultimately, his injuries were caused by about 800 pounds of a burning building that fell on him, right? Now, if everyone watched the fire and secretly whispered to everybody who is, let's say, white, okay, get out, but don't tell anyone who is black, then, right? Okay, but that's ridiculous. There's either a mayday to everybody and an evacuation order or not, or I suppose maybe everybody in the building when the collapse is going to happen is black, but I doubt that. So in that case, he's going to have a hard time proving proximate cause that the policies, even if racist, led to him getting injured when a building roof collapsed.
This is a pro se suit, and I don't think he realizes that. I think that's probably why he couldn't find an attorney to take it. Right. But the proximate cause is certainly going to be an issue. And, you know, I think there's if you haven't been to law school, you don't understand proximate. You probably don't have a good handle on proximate cause, and the need to make the connection here between let's go back to negligence. Okay, right. When it comes to accusing someone of negligence, you can't just show that there's negligence. My professor said, my evidence professor, you can't just say it's negligence in the air. Right. You know, you can't point to one thing of negligence and therefore I was injured through negligence. You have to show that the specific thing that led to your injury was negligent. You can't just show all these other examples. And same thing here, there may have been racism, but you've got to show that racism caused this injury. I think that's a stretch. I think I'm not saying you can't prove it, but I think he's got an uphill battle.
Well, he's got statute of limitations to start. This is way
well, and I think he's got to get over that. And I think that's really one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good one to cover, because it lets us talk about statute of limitations, and also what he is requesting, which is equitable tolling of the statute of limitations. Okay, now we understand virtually any claim has a statute of limitations, and that is to protect people from being sued for something 50 years later after all the evidence and the witnesses have gone. And so there's a statute of limitations, but there are certain things in our legal system, reasons why the statute may be tolled.
Like you're in a coma.
Coma would be one of them. Okay. But you know, an underage child until they turn 18. Would be another one. So there's different reasons why. So here he's saying that he was not medically able to bring this suit sooner. So there you have a question of fact about whether or not he actually was able. But you can see why. Now, to go back to 2009, think about where all of us were back in 2009, and you know, how do you go about constructing a defense if you're the city? To some of these allegations. And I really wonder whether or not the firefighter is going to be able to come up with witnesses and that are going to have good recollections of what happened there to document his proximate cause. So it's going to be hard for the plaintiff. It's going to be very hard for the city. And I think I can see this being dismissed. I think the easiest way out of this is to dismiss it based on, is that your new paralegal?
That's I was just going to say that. That's
she's a tiger. She's a tiger, huh?
Yeah, she's much bigger on camera than she seems. She's very vicious here. Yeah, she likes walking it out. I was just noticing that.
So I see this being dismissed on that. But I think it's interesting to keep that in mind, that equitable tolling that can apply in a situation.
But it's novel. Anyway, now let's go. This is super interesting. I don't think it has a chance of winning, but we have a widow, obviously deceased firefighter, who's suing the mayor, which was the employer, for causing her husband's psychotic break. And she basically says that you were so abusive to him, claiming that he was faking disabilities and lying, and right. So, but let me just sum it all up, because it goes on for pages and pages of the lawsuit of things this mayor did. Okay, the mayor appears to be a horrible person and doing horrible things, right? The city even agrees, I guess, or the employer even agrees, but
it was the Massachusetts Civil Service Commission agreed.
Okay. That's big, right? Yeah. That's big. And so, I mean, the chief was just horribly vindictive, and accusing the individual of crimes and all this stuff. In any event, apparently pushed to the brink, right? Such that the firefighter claims to have been now deceased, but let me say what happened. I didn't even say what happened. So there's a standoff between him and the police, which ultimately led to him getting shot. I don't think there was death by cop.
It was, yeah, it was suicide by cop.
Or was it?
I think,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that that's what it was. He was just, and it happened on the day that the Mass Civil Service Commission ruled that he was wrongfully terminated and that the city did all this wrong stuff. And the mayor announced that they were going to appeal it.
Oh,
And that's the day that this
pushed him
happened.
over the brink.
He snapped, and you know, it was suicide by cop.
Okay. So look, and their primary argument is intentional infliction of emotional distress. And intentional infliction is a very, very difficult. It's probably one of the hardest to win on. It shows that you had extreme and outrageous conduct, which I got to say he probably meets that, right? But that you intended to cause emotional distress, okay, sure. But then to have this intervening act, let's just assume he hung himself or he took pills or whatever. Let's just assume he committed suicide. It's possible, right? It's certain, and they're going to have to say this was death by cop, because if it wasn't an intentional act to try to cause suicide, then it's just this intervening. Okay,
well,
but
there's an interesting nuance here, and the complaint makes it clear that they're not alleging wrongful death.
But they have to.
No, well,
not of the police.
It depends on what you want for damages here. But what they're saying is they want damages for this conspiracy, intentional infliction, emotional distress, defamation, tortious interference. So they basically want to stop the camera moments before he engaged in the behavior that led to his death, and look at all the behavior of the mayor. And did that constitute defamation? Did the mayor defame him? Did the mayor interfere with his right to a pension, which it appears that he did?
Probably true.
Abuse of process, invasion of privacy. So did the mayor do all of this? Forget about the fatality, at least for now. They said that they want to reserve the right to go for wrongful death later. And yeah, I think if you can just look at that snapshot in time, they may be able to make that case. I think you're right. You couple that with the standoff, and then it kind of, is the mayor actually responsible for that? But certainly up to that point, I don't know. I think that's how I probably would have tried to parse it out if I was representing her.
Yeah, the first thing I kept looking for in this case is, where's the defamation suit? Now, I don't know about other states, but in New York, defamation has a 1-year statute of limitations after the publication or the statement. Now, you have a continuing series of statements, but these are 2 years ago. So
no,
more than
2023. So
2023. Okay, so he would have been, but did they sue on defamation? Because I don't see
defamation. I mean, I have to go back and look at the complaint, but at least as far as my write-up, it says they allege conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, tortious interference with a business relationship. So
abusive process, right? I don't see defamation.
So, all of those, you don't. Well, I'd have to go.
No, I see the defamation. I don't see defamation being a pled. So
it's not in the complaint.
I don't know. It's not in your write-up. So I got to look.
No, it's in my write-up. It's in my
write-up. That's where it should be. It should state defamation. Let's take a look. But nonetheless, because everything is built on what you said was a lie.
Defamation. Count 3 is defamation.
Oh, good. Okay. Because it has to all be built on that you lied. You said things that weren't true in writing, verbally, etc. And without that, the whole case falls apart. So why wouldn't you allege it? And I was thinking, okay, maybe because it happened 2 years ago, right? Because the termination was on January 25th of 22.
Right.
So
I'm not sure. I'm not an attorney in Mass. I know ours is 1 year. Intentional torts is 1 year. I should know because I went to law school in Mass and they drilled all that stuff into our heads. But I don't know. But in Rhode Island, I know it's a 1 year. Intentional torts is 1 year.
Sure, it is. Yeah. Federally, it's 1 year. I'm sure it is 1 year. But in any event, this is but both of these two lawsuits, right? Let's combine the last one and this one. Should be of critical importance to both departments or to all listeners, because if you have an abusive relationship between two people, and I've been there on the receiving end, if you, as I always joke about, but it's true, but if you are in an abusive relationship with your employer, if you're the employer and one of your superiors is having that, you need to stop it. because it only ends, well, now 2 ways, but generally 1 way, right? There's always termination, now lawsuit. Now, hopefully you don't get to the point of, death by cop or whatever, but this should have been ended when it started. You start getting public fights between your employers and employees, unless it's like, normal concerted union activity. That's one thing, but something like this, you got to put an end to it. This is not going to end well. And to give your chief or CEO or whatever the leash on this, all you're doing is, 1, extending the lawsuit time every time he says something new, and 2, you're guaranteeing a lawsuit or worse. And this stuff does have impact. I mean, it totally changed the paradigm. But in Henrietta, New York, Rochester, New York, where the firefighter took his own life after leaving his job, I bring that up because as fire personnel, I can't speak to police, but as fire service personnel, our life is built on the fact that we at any moment can do something good. We live for something bigger than ourselves. We live for the job, but not the job, what the job allows us to do. And when you pull that out of somebody's life to the point in Henrietta where they want to take their own life, to here, right, where you're saying, my God, you're disabled in the line of duty, and no, you're not.
You're phony, right? Yeah.
Right. All of this. I mean, the fire service is so personal. It is going to be a lawsuit or worse, suicide. Just stop it. Just if you're an administrator, just understand how important this is.
I think we're dealing here with an elected official, and I don't know the mayor. I don't know his reputation, but I do know I've dealt with my fair share of elected officials, and some of them are what we call in baseball lingo, uncoachable.
Yeah.
They are not going to listen to. Right. They have their mindset about what they want to do and where they want to go. There's allegations in the lawsuit that he was looking to run for
higher assembly or something.
He's going to run for higher office, and this was going to be part of his campaign, that he was cleaning up corruption and so on. So that may have factored into his calculations in that, but some people are just uncoachable. So I think hopefully the folks that are listening to us here are coachable, and there's no need to say anything beyond no comment.
Right.
When the media reaches out to you about why are you appealing this, this is a personnel matter and we have no more comment on this. But you don't want to say we're appealing it because we feel he's a phony or any of the other things that the mayor said. That totally inappropriate and unnecessary.
And when you are out, when you have the public spotlight as a mayor versus the firefighter is just a target of his, comments and being used as a political pawn, right? The allegation, you don't have a voice. So maybe this firefighter, I'm not a psychologist, although you with forensic psychology, maybe, maybe this is how he gets a voice. He does something so public that attracts so much attention. Finally, people are going to listen to me. If I'm him, I'm thinking, even when I win, I can't win. Right? I mean, but he did win. So I don't know. I feel obviously we feel badly for this, but this is not just about legal issues, right? It's if you prevent legal issues, you can also prevent something like this. It's almost the same thing. And your point maybe is the best ending point, really, which is, you don't have to make it public. Just say no comment. Just keep the people out of the public view. Your personnel issues are personnel issues. Don't make them public.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we are for today. I just want an important note. I'm just staring at your picture online, noticing, how long your mustache has gotten since your nice cheese picture there. So everyone mocks at me while we just
someday
beard got. Well,
someday I'll have another one done. Someday I'll have another one done.
I say the same thing. I sell my baby face and whatever. Anyway, that's it for today.
All right. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Fire Law Roundup. And we'll see everyone back next week. And that'll do it. Thanks, Brad.
Take care, everyone.
We'll see you.